We're in the middle of Perek Chaf Bet and Sefer Breisheet, obviously, and we've made a little bit of headway. And today we're going to talk about the conversation and the conversation. We're up to Pasuk Gimel, which I won't spend too much time on for now, but so I want to get to the conversation of how things run. Avram wakes up in the morning. He woke up every single day in the morning, but this day was unlike any other day. And the idea that he himself was, as the Gemara quoted by Rashi teaches us, Nizdar is lamitzvah. He was there was a certain measure, or more than a certain measure, of alacrity in what he was doing. He was very, what would happen in my video over there? He was very conscientious about wanting to make sure that he did the mitzvah with enthusiasm. Again, that didn't mean there wasn't an inner tumult. That's what we'll talk about today, that inner process, or some of it at least. But he knew he was a mitzvah, he was commanded, and he was going ahead with it. So he wakes up in the morning, he saddles his own donkey. He doesn't wait for any of the people in his household. We don't think of that as so special. You're going on a trip, you probably pack the car yourself. If you have a car, you put it in. But if you're a wealthy magnate and you're living in the time of Avraham Avinu, so that should be done by underlings, and Rashi quotes this as well. And the concept ahava mekalkelet et hashura, that love will overturn the order of things. Meaning he wanted to be very hands-on, to do it himself. And we talked last time a little bit about the fact that both Yishmael and Eliezer are together with him, according to the Medrash. They're identified on the level of Pshat. He takes two lads with him. They're not particularly special. They're underlings. But the Chazal want us to understand another layer, that coming along on this journey, and mark my words so that it's not taken out of context, whether literally, but they're not identified, or metaphorically, they're on this journey. And those are not contradictory statements. It could be they're both. Really, these two Na'arim are Eliezer and Yishmael. They came along with him. And also, it was not just that they came, but there's baggage with both of them. The one who is would have been the purported heir to the throne, so to speak, once Lot is out of the picture, Eliezer, whose name is actually Eliezer, God is my help. He didn't just get that name that fell from the sky. He was Davka under the tutelage of Avram Avinu. He's Zikan Beito, the elder of his household, right? He's Damasik Eliezer, Chazal say, Doleu Mashke Mitorat Rabo La'achirim. He draws and pours out the Torah that he learned from his Rebbe to others. Yeah, so he's very special. Of course, he goes on the journey, a spiritual journey. He doesn't go the whole way, but he goes part of the way. And who else? The first son born to Avram Avinu in the world is Yishmael. He's also on the journey. Now, one could see that as literally it was actually the two of them, which begs the question, why didn't George just identify who they are? And the answer could be they're erased. They're underplayed on purpose because they're not vital to the story. So therefore, they're referred to in a generic manner. And with all of the meanings behind, what does it mean that they came? Especially when, as was pointed out last time, Yishmael walked off the set already in last parak. He sent him away. So Avram called him, sent him a postcard. I have to go on the Akedah. Can you come back? How did he get to him so quickly? Was he really so much within reach? Which could be, but not clear. Also, the chronology, obviously, how old is Yitzchak? Not clear, but that would make a difference to how old Yishmael is and where Yishmael might be in life and where he may be living, etc. But the other interpretation, that's all one side. The other way of seeing it is the pshat, on the level of pshat, who came? Avram said, you and you, I need you, please come with me. It's two people. Why don't we have their names? Because they're not significant in the story. We don't have to know who they are at all. Except the Medrash wants us to know that on a metaphoric level, Avram's not just making this journey with Yitzchak Avinu. Coming along, now B'tzitutim, coming along for the journey is, in the air quotes, who is it? Yishmael, Eliezer. They're not going to go the full distance, but they're also Rands. I don't mean that in the sense that they didn't make the grade, so they kind of lost, but that they're part of the story. They're part of the trajectory, but they're not in the level of Pshat. Maybe. I'm not saying this authoritatively or anything. We don't have to paskin in the world of Agadah. Maybe because they're not actually literally the two lads. Chazal attributed, who are those two anonymous people, doesn't matter. Literally doesn't matter. But on the deeper level for Avram, who are those two lads? The one represents the Yishmael, the other Eliezer. Again, not that he pointed to this one and said, you play the part of, you play the part of. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying? It's not that way. It's that proverbially, of course, they're in the mix on the road. Again, and you could say, well, that's very nice using, like, it's metaphoric, but Chazal said it, so obviously that's what it must be. You could make such an argument, except we have to answer the question, why didn't it say so in the Torah? We know who they are, Eliezer and Yishmael. Could have just said, Vayikach et Yishmael vet Eliezer, would have made the point even more strongly, unless on the level of Pshat, it didn't go down that way. It's open-ended. I get a lot of this, you left with the conceptual, you don't necessarily plumb the depths to come to a bottom line. It's more about understanding conceptually the different possibilities and their layers of meaning each time. He's splitting the wood, and they start going to the place that God has told him. He doesn't actually know the place except for the region. It's one of the mountains. I'm not going to tell you which one it is. They haven't arrived yet. Pasuk Dal b'yom hashlishi, on the third day. Vayisa Avraham et einav, vayard hamakom merachok. He lifts up his eyes and he sees the place from afar. Vayard, I'm skipping for a minute, just the end of the pasuk. Vayard hamakom merachok means he sees the place from afar. Rashi tells us also from the Medrash, Ra'a anan kashur al har. He saw that there was a cloud tethered to the top of the mountain, and this sharpened for Avram Avinu. It must be that this is the place. That's the sign. So in other words, Hashem didn't make a gigantic arrow and point it. He didn't tell him. He didn't speak to him again and say, Avraham, see the mountain up ahead. It's that one. Avram understood from the fact that presumably all the other mountains are cloudless. There was one mountain up ahead that has a cloud attached to it. We'll come back to that. But the reason I skipped to that is to understand that 3 days elapsed, and we will have in verse 5 and verse 6, Pasuk Hey and Pasuk Vav, a very brief, Pasuk 5 and Pasuk 6 will be the brief conversation with the two lads, and then the moving together with Yitzchak toward the mountain, and Pasuk Zayin and Pasuk Chet, a very brief conversation between Avraham and Yitzchak. Now, when did those conversations happen is a bit of an open question, meaning, is it that he saw the place from afar and then he had these conversations? Or is it he walked for 3 days and he saw this place from afar, meaning at the end of it, and what was going on in the 3 days? Here are two short conversations. Now, against that idea is the fact that on verse 5, he actually tells the two lads, you stay here and we're going to there. Implies he already knows where there is, yeah? You understand why? Because in verse 5 and verse 6, which I didn't even read on purpose because I don't want to get bogged down in the language, but the conversation that Avram has, what he tells the two lads, you're going to stay here, we're going to keep going. Everybody knows the basic frame story. So we're going, and he takes what he takes and they go. So that has to be after he saw the place. But the conversation, verse 7 and verse 8, it's not entirely clear that it has to have transpired per se at the moment of the two of them being alone. Now, why am I opening that door? Because Chazal opened that door. Chazal say that during the 3 days of walking, by Yom HaShlishi, it's 3 days, that there was something that was going on. There was a process that was transpiring. Pasuk Daled, Rashi says in a very trenchant manner. I want to spend most of the rest of today looking at some sources on the screen together with you from the Medrash about what that conversation might have entailed. Rashi tells us B'yom HaShlishi was on the 3rd day. So they walked 3 days. Where were they coming from? They were coming presumably from Beersheba, presumably from the area of Beersheba. So they're walking from south to north. I've mentioned many times. I'll mention again. We know where the Derech HaAvot road is. In certain places, we can actually see it. It was a Shabbat HaGadol Drasha, the picture of the famous milestone, Roman milestone on the Derech HaAvot. That's the road pilgrims took we know for sure in the Second Temple period. It makes sense that it would have been in the First Temple period, and it makes sense that it's also the road because it would be the most direct topographically, not just as the crow flies, because you also have to go around topography. But from a topographical perspective, it's almost certainly where Avram and Yitzchak trudged on that 3-day journey. So Rashi tells us, Lama ichim laharoto miyad. Why did God delay from showing it to Avram Avinu immediately? Shlo yomru, so no one would say, Hamamo ve'arbavo pitom v'taraf da'ato, that God shocked him. God confused him suddenly, and it mixed him up, and he lost his mind. Had Avram had some time to think about what he was about to do, he would not have gone through with the Akedah, not been prepared to go through with the Akedah. So therefore, Rashi, quoting from the Medrash Tanchuma, says there's a 3-day gap so that Avraham can think about it, and so that no one can say afterward, Avram really didn't consider what the issues might be. The Medrash, the Bali Medrash, see that there's a 3 days that are mentioned. What's going on for 3 days? Also, not Rashi, I don't think, since Rashi was never in Eretz Yisrael, and he had in his own rudimentary map of Eretz Yisrael, which has its own concept of where things are located, let's say, in terms of the borders of Eretz Yisrael. But in the case of many of the Mefarshim, and certainly the Bali Medrash, who lived in Eretz Yisrael, they knew that it is a distance from, let's say, Beersheba up to Yerushalayim. It's not clear that it's literally a 3-day walk. It's not so clear. Which begs the question: okay, what's going on? It's 3 days. It's not a few hours. It's certainly longer than that. You just look at the map and you have to walk. But there is a question: why mention it was 3 days later? Like, why does the time matter? Here we started with such alacrity. He's going on the journey, but 3 days are passing. So look with me on the screen for some of the 3 days worth of conversation. Okay, I hope everyone can see it. If not, put it in the chat. I can't see, and I'll try to fix it. So we have here, this is where you have the conversation is based on the pasuk later on, and the pasuk about Yitzchak and Avraham together. Yeah, that's pasuk Zion and Chet, where Yitzchak speaks to Avraham and he says to him, Avi. But I'm deliberately not learning the psukim inside the pshat of that conversation between Avraham and Yitzchak, because first I want us to focus on what else was transpiring, which is why I did this little intro, which I hope wasn't too far afield for you, to suggest that maybe, at least according to the Bali Medrash, we have like a title. It's not really a title on the whole story, but sort of like a section that's being introduced as, and Avram saw there was a cloud. They all walked for 3 days, and Avram saw there was a cloud on top. Then he said to the two people, the two Na'arim, you stay here, we're going to keep going. But then Yitzchak said something to Avram. That's how it's ordered. Now we'll come back to the question of why is it ordered that way. But what the Medrash does is invokes or inserts all different other conversations that are happening under the radar between Avram Avinu and someone else who's in the picture, the one who is known as the nefarious foe of everything in the world, the Samach Mem, called by this name, Samael, which could also be called the Malach HaMavet, could also be called, according to Reish Lakish, the Malach HaMavet. It's also the Nachash HaKadmoni, and you could also say it's the Yetzer Hara. It's the primordial serpent. It is the evil inclination. In that spirit, let's go. So Yitzchak said to his father, he said to him, my father. And the Medrash takes off on the following story. Balo Samael Eitzel Avram Avinu. So the Yetzer Hara came to Avram Avinu, personified as an angel, maybe dressed up, in a certain way. Amar Le said to him, Saba, Saba, uvadat libach. Old man, Saba, Saba, like Zaidi, Zaidi. You've lost your mind. You're not normal. This is all insanity. Ben shnitan lecha lekuf shana, ataolech l'shachato. The son that was given to you when you were 100, you're going to sacrifice? You're going to slaughter? Amar Le amanat came. Yeah, yes I am. That's true. Amar Le. If he tests you more than this, are you going to be able to do that? All right. So for the book of Eov, I'll do even more. Said the Malach, said the Samael to the Samach Mem, as he's sometimes called, to Avram Avinu, Lemachar, Omer lecha shofech damim at chayav, sheshafachta damo shel bincha, amar le amanat kein. So what is this? Right? Tomorrow, God will say that you're a murderer. And Avram says, fine, I'm still going to do it. What do you think's going on here?
This is the crux of the test. It's these 3 days of dread and anticipation and the vacillating between the two while he still had an opportunity to turn around. So this is really where the test is taking place.
Yeah. In yesteryear, we might have said that the only way to understand this, mysterious though it may be, is that Hashem created a malach. The malach, this angel's job, is to be an obstacle to everything that is good in the world. It's to create the possibility that choice actually matters. And that angel is constantly inserting itself in every scenario. So Avraham and Yitzchak go together, hand in hand, if you will, father and son. And it's dressed up as an old man. It's dressed up as something. And okay, what do they do? They have to resist the temptations of the others who they're encountering. Where are you off to? I'm going to sacrifice myself. What are you, crazy? You know that God gave you him as a gift, and he's going to call you. The whole test in the end, he's going to call you a murderer. The test is, will you resist the mitzvah and say no? Avram says, no, I'm not going to do that. Now, in yesterday, we would have seen it exclusively that way, and we would have also included that the Samach Mem doesn't just refer to an angel that Hashem made, but an angel may be dressed up as a person, something like that, but that maybe there were already grumblings, or there was the anticipation that there would be grumblings in the future by other people coming after the story, coming after Avram Avinu, coming after Hashem, about the fact of this mitzvah altogether.
Rabbi, I'm sorry. This is like, I'm sure that the people of Moab, when they put their kids up for the, was it the Malach worship? Molech, the fire had the same kind of reaction as my God is telling me to do this. And it's a test and it's for the benefit of my community. It's for the benefit of us. And so, the same thing. So I'm sorry, I do not see this as any great thing on Abraham's part to constantly resist this. This isn't like some angel coming to you or some Yetzer Hara coming to you and saying, eat that ham sandwich. You're really hungry. You walked a lot. You did a marathon. You absolutely need to eat it. This is a promise from God about your son. You're going to have the son, and then God saying, no, you're not going to have the son, and it's murder. This is somebody who did not was upset about what was going to happen to Sodom. And here he's taking it without telling his wife, he's taking it calmly. Now, Yitzchak may have been old enough that he can acquiesce into this. That may very well be. But come on, I'm sorry, I don't see where this is this.
No, this is very good. This is very good. This is very good. It's actually, I would say it's actually an excellent point that you're making. Dafka, an excellent point. So now I want you to go back and look at the story again and tell me what you see. I'm going to put it back on the screen. Wait, Rochelle, can I just address Shelley for one more minute? Give me half a second. I do want to hear what you say. Just look at this. Now I want to go back and I want to ask you. Let's say the Samael, the Samach Mem, is not actually an angel. It's not actually something outside of Avraham. but it's actually 3 days of Avram Avinu wrestling with his own conscience, with the voice inside of him that's saying, wait a second, how am I exactly supposed to reconcile the mitzvah that I got from the same loving God who told me to leave my home and it'll be good and I'll be blessed, et cetera, and then told me that I'll have a child, and who told me, Ki b'yitzchak likar l'chazara, and now the undoing of all of that through this mitzvah. What if it turns out that this is not an external force, neither the way in which history will judge it in the future, nor is it a metaphysical creation in the sense of some external, again, the very concrete way of viewing angels is that they are with wings and they're running around, because that's what Yechezkel describes. That's what Yeshaya describes. So we even though the Rambam reminds us they don't have bodies, that's the whole point. Oh, but in this case, they come dressed up. But what if it turns out that actually we're understanding this a little bit more? This is the Yetzer Hara of Avram Avinu, means it is his conscience wrestling with himself in both directions. And realizing, and that's what you just said, Shelley. Lamachar omer lecha shofech dam at chayav sheshafachta dam shel bincha. Don't you know that tomorrow God is going to say to you, and you will accuse yourself even. It's really good. God is going to say to you, you're a murderer. The whole test was to say no. Why are you staying so quiet? And isn't that one of the questions that we had from the beginning? How come Avram Avinu goes, like you said, goes to the mat for Sdom and doesn't go to the mat for Yitzchak?
The thing about this isn't fine. I can buy that, but then when God gave him the commandment, and later on when this takes place, if it's sometime during the 3 days, he doesn't cry out to God. He doesn't cry out and say, God is everywhere. He knows he's got faith in God. He knows that God is going to hear him. Cry out and say, God, do you really want me to do this? I can't believe you really want me to do this. He's taking God for granted from the beginning that, okay, you gave me this commandment. I'm going to go and do it. I'm not going to tell my wife. I'm just going to go and do it. And
right. I'm still, I know you hate me for it, but I'm still pushing off the question of Sari Imenu in this whole story, because I want to stay with the Avraham piece a little bit more. I think there's still yet more to say about it, and I want to push it a little further. But Rochelle, you wanted to say something? I don't want to give you the opportunity. I'm sorry.
I heard it was a Shabbos structure, so I never copied the source down many years ago, and it in some ways reinforced a little bit how I feel about the whole story.
Yeah,
where it actually says that Abraham actually failed the test.
I reject it with two hands. I push that idea away. 2 hands, I push it away. I feel there's not one iota of proof anywhere in our canon. And I think that it is an attempt to undermine the greatness of Avram Avinu and actually ultimately to undermine our faith. Sorry.
No, and I'm saying
Avram Avinu did not fail the test. Avram Avinu failed the test of the Akedah. We would have, I'm not saying he didn't pay a price for the test of the Akedah. I'm not saying there wasn't negative consequences even to passing the test. But the idea of the inversion of everything that happened, and that really the story is that no, he was not the hero, he's the anti-hero, is exactly the postmodern deconstruction, the deconstructionist approach that we have throughout. The hero is not really the hero. It's a secret, really. He's the anti-hero. It would have to be substantiated in some way, like borne out by the pshat and borne out by the medrash. And when it's like that and it goes in that direction, I'm not trying to attack you over here, Rochelle. I know you heard it. I know there are people who say it that way. I find it extremely unsettling that people would do that. And I say that, and everybody on this call is, we've learned together many years. I'm not one to whitewash, not the sins of people who are in Tanakh, not the foibles and the failures. I have no idea how that could be, that claim could be made. I just really don't. I don't accept it.
To reinforce it, what was pointed out was as a result of this, and we've also discussed how some of it could have been the way it was done and not telling Sarah and discussing with her. The fact that Sarah died, the fact that Hashem never spoke to Abraham again. Yeah, so, and I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah, there were,
So,
like you said, there were
again,
repercussions.
I'm sure there's room for discussion about it, but I don't want to be drawn into the discussion again about Sari Menu yet. We'll get there when we get there. But I will point out that if it turns out that it was a punishment, it would actually be instructive for someone somewhere in our canon to have pointed out in that way. And, you know, it's taking me too far afield. It's if it really is truly a punishment, the confluence of the two events, while tragic, would have to be explicated in some manner. And the same, what's the word? The same Parshanei Mikra who said that Avram Avinu, did sin when he, whatever it is, he brought Sarah to danger. The Ramban says that, Avinu to Mitzrayim. The idea that Avram said to Hashem, Bamei daki irashena. How will I know that I will inherit it? And that therefore he's punished with 400 years or what have you. Chazal would have spared no expense to tell us that overtly, directly, and without any hesitation. And they didn't say that. Why? Were they covering for Avraham? They didn't cover him in many other places. And it would be so obvious, and Sari Menu died right after, say it's a punishment to Avram Avinu for something bad that he did. I don't want to sit personally and make those judgments. If I have, when we're saying so-and-so died, it's your fault of so-and-so. I wouldn't say it to the person at their Shiva.
Rabbi, you said before.
I wouldn't say it about one of the Avodim Mahot. What?
Can I, I've had my hand up.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. We are looking back on this story with thousands of years of hindsight. And the fact that we look at this and we struggle with it shows to me how we have grown from all these thousands of years of discussion about it. And I think I view the Akedah with Yitzhak as we do have the concept that you offer the best of yourself to Hashem. This is
we've talked, right. We were talking about this.
We've talked about this
last year.
Back then, people viewed the best of themselves as putting their kids and killing their kids and all of this stuff. These days, we still view the best of ourselves as our children. We do Brit Milah, we send them to day schools, we do all of these things to bring them up and show this is the best I have to offer to you is the next generation. So it's just thousands of years later interpolating Abraham's test here and moving it forward thousands of years to us doing it in a different way.
I certainly hear it. And again, and not to take us too far afield, but Shelley does, by the way, have an important point, and you're kind of sharpening it a different way. But, the Ramban makes this point very strongly at the beginning of Sefer Vayikra. And this will sound shocking to you, but you have to let me say both sides of the sentence before anyone jumps on me. I'm going to say it as one sentence because Chas v'Shalom will take me out of context. It'd be very, very bad. The Ramban basically says the concept of sacrifice and even of human sacrifice from a conceptual perspective is exactly what religion is about what you're saying, what we love, what we cherish, what is so high and mighty. Give it to Hashem. That's service of God, because to give God what is so easy and facile, that's nothing. It's when we really feel with giving. That's conceptual. Practically, an absolute abomination to speak about human sacrifice. Never, 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 never would we do such a thing. It's anathema. But the notion of the animals, that also, like, what did they do wrong? Like, so leaving aside the reality that since the time period of Noach, that people are eating meat, and that's a human propensity toward eating meat, which is another discussion, whether that's ideal or if it's a concession to a humanity that is free and has a murderous tendency or a need to eat meat or whatnot. The reality that even from that point forward, the idea that a person will see the animals being sacrificed and feel, then putting their hand on the animal while it's still alive, and then watching it be offered on the altar on a certain conceptual level, to say, that's me. I'm offering as the offering my unique soul. which is, rings in your ears. What? But that the conceptual basis for it. And by the by, and I come now full circle back to Shelley's point from before, this is the hard wiring of a person in terms of a religious impulse, which is why Chazal are constant, and the Torah, not Chazal, the Torah Shebichtav and the Torah Sheba'al Peh are railing against idolatry. God's saying, I know you have a propensity to spirituality. I know that spirituality is going to take different forms. I know that's a human capacity that you are built with in your hardwiring for spiritual expression. You can choose. You're going to do it toward me, or you're going to do it toward idolatry. Is it going to be literally human sacrifice, or is it going to be my conversation, with you in a dialogue? You have to figure out how how it's going to play out, if you will. Yeah. So there's much more to say on the subject. Yes, someone's wanted to speak. I'm sorry. Shoshi, go ahead.
I want to say something. So to answer Shelley a little bit, why didn't he talk to Hashem? Why didn't Avram talk to Hashem? Can we translate Pasuk Dalet just like that? Vayisa Abraham Esainav, he looks to Hashem and talks to him and says, what am I doing? And Hashem shows him, he shows it to him.
Yeah, some of the Mefarshim read it that way, that actually Vayard Hamakom Merachok is Hamakom, like when we say, Hamakom Yerachem Aleim Tzimon Salavacha, or Hamakom Yinachem Etchem, I think Kliyakar says it that way, a couple other Mefarshim, to see it in that vein. Yeah, to see it in that vein. Yes. And there's something there's something there for sure.
Can I say something?
Please, Sipora, go ahead, please.
Okay, I think that we have a message here for 3,000 years later in the state of Israel, when parents sent their kids to the army. Only exactly a year ago, if you remember the case of Amit Ben Igal, an only son to a divorced father, the two of them, and if you are an only son, the father has to sign that if he goes to combat, gives him permission. The father said that for 2 months, the boy was digging his mind, please sign, till he gave up, and he did sign for him. And then he was killed in a terror act. The father is left, he said, Akadosh Baruch Hu, I'm by myself, he took my son away from me. This hand signed it. Where am I going? What am I doing? And every Friday night he goes up, to the gravesite, and he does Kabbalat Shabbat on the gravesite. I think this is exactly the message. You'll have to sacrifice. That's it, Jewish people. Yeah. I don't know. That's your fortune. I see this a message of telling Jewish parents, you want a state? You are in your state. This is the sacrifice.
Again, I think a lot of resonance to what you say, but you have to be a little bit careful, only in as much as to not say that we're sending Khalila, the children who are going to Tzahal, it's incredibly heroic, that we're sending them to be sacrificed and slaughtered. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's a sacrifice on the parent side.
Oh, yeah. To be
no. What I said is a sacrifice on the parent side. This father has a conflict. He says, I know. He says, since my boy was a little one, he said, I want to be a combat soldier. I want to be. And this was the conflict of the father. Should I sign? Shouldn't I sign? And finally he said, I gave up.
He relented.
Yeah, no, I'm not. No.
Yeah.
Rabbi,
Helen, go ahead. Thank you for that support.
I feel bad because we're going so far. Our last Haftorah was about the parents of Shimshon. And they are told, although she will have a child, if she was an Akora, the child will be a Nazir and will not exactly be under her control. And we have the same story with Hannah, that she's crying and waiting for the child, but the child will be in the service of Hashem. Now, of course, these are much lesser things, but the question comes up, in the partnership of Hashem and the parents, there is a going battle about really who owns the child. And we could possibly cast a little light on this story about whose child is this?
Yeah. I mean, that is a big message of Judaism, is that the child is not the property of the parents. The
I
parents are
mean,
just the
especially with this
custodians.
last Haftorah, the
Parents are
mother is
no more
told
than
the child's going
custodians
to
of the
be a
children.
Nazir.
They're the shomrim, but they're not the bailim. The children are not chattel.
Exactly.
They're not property. Yeah, it's a beautiful. Yeah, thank you for raising it. Thank you very much.
Okay,
It's a great
okay.
point. It's a great point. I want to show you another medrash to see the other side of the story, so to speak, which is that once the Samach Mem has no success, so now there's another attack that comes instead. Yeah. And as Shelley, thank you for pointing about Chana, right? Chana dedicates her son, right? That's another thing. Let's go to the next section though about this as we continue to think about it. V'keven shelo ho'il mimenu klum. It didn't work. What the Samach Mem tried to do to Avraham didn't work. So it went to Yitzchak. And this works much better, of course, if Yitzchak is 37. Balo etzel Yitzchak. Amarlo, he said to him now, Bra de aluvta. You're the son of the shamed one. He's going to slaughter you. Now, what does the shamed one mean? It's referring to Sarah Imenu. Remember, she was shamed by Hagar. Hagar, conceives, has a child, and Sarah seems to be shunted to the side. And there are these challenges. Even after the birth, there's still the people making fun and making jokes, etc. So don't you see? He's going to slaughter you. Amar le, amanat kain. So yeah, it seems that's what's going to happen. So Amar le said the Zakein, the Samach Mem, he said to him, Im kain, if so, kol atan hapar gaziot. Sha'ast imcha lishmal snea debete yeruta va'atav inach machnis belibach. So basically, all of the beautiful clothes that your mother made for you, the mother makes the clothing for the child, they'll all go to Yishmael, the hated one of her household. He'll be the one to inherit the household because there is no other son left. And don't you think that is, now watch it carefully, right? What's going to be with you? What about in your heart? What's going on for you? Kadlo teol mila teol palga. So basically, what's going on in your heart means, what do you think is going to happen to your mother and your mother's legacy? So far, the insertion of Sari Menu just a little bit into the story is absent, but how come you don't have pity? Never mind on you, you're so religious. Never mind your father, whatever he's doing. What about your mother and your mother's legacy? So Kadlo Teol Mila Teol Palga. If it's not going to work completely, it'll work partially. As it then says, Vayomer Yitzchak Avram Aviv Avi. He called out to his father, Avram's father, my father. Lama Avi Avi Shtei Pa'amim, K'nei she'itmala alav rachamim. He wanted to arouse his feeling of compassion, of mercy, etc. Yeah. So, and as Rosalie writes, correct. Hashem Natan, Hashem Lakach, Hashem Avorach. God gives, God takes away. May the name of God be blessed. Right. Pasuk, by the way, from Sefer Eov as well. So the idea here that he tells his name to endear himself to his father, to arouse his compassion, right? So Vayomer Hineha Eish Vayitzim. So he mentions about we have fire and we have wood. Remember, that's what Yitzchak's going to say to his father. There's fire here and there's wood here. Meaning, do we really understand what we're doing? Yitzchak was asking his father something. Amar le Yitzaf Lahud Gavra the Yigar Bey. Right? So let the man who has come against us, let that person, be drowned away, basically drown out that one. Right? Meaning we have the fire and the wood here referring perhaps to the idea, I think what the Medrash is angling at is that these are not just materials for the Akedah, but they also reflect the idea that something is being kindled, a fire of doubt. He tells him not should be drowned. That man who is trying to get you into his clutches, who is rebuking you, should actually be drowned. That fire of doubt, put that out. Get rid of that. Mikol makom, in any case, Elokim yirelo haseh b'ni, God will show us the lamb, my son, and if not, ata haseh la'ola b'ni, then you will be it. Now, if you look in the pshat, it was not that overt. All it says, Elokim yirelo haseh la'ola b'ni, right? But the rendering of the Medrash is that Avram was really telling his son on a deeper level, God will show us the lamb, and if not, you will be the lamb. Vayelchu shneim yachdav, ze la'akod, v'ze le'aked, ze lishchot, v'ze lishachet. They went the two of them together, this one to bind, that one to be bound, this one to slaughter, that one to be slaughtered. What's the idea here? That when it comes to Yitzchak Avinu, that's why he raises this question. Because playing in his mind is the voice of, again, the metaphysical Samach Mem, a person who is really the Samach Mem. I use the acronym for Samael. We call him Samach Mem, usually in the literature. To come to him and address as an old man. Where's Avram when this old man's talking to Yitzchak? Yeah, where Avram is off in the woods, and only Yitzchak is walking by himself. They were standing next to each other. Or is it, again, in the mind of Yitzchak, look at you. Look at you. You have no mercy. Never mind yourself. You want to be religious? That's great. It's on the back of your poor mother. It's on the back of her legacy, and the back of all of that. This is going to happen. So the Medrash says it's not going to work entirely, but it did have a little bit of an impact, which is what causes Yitzchak to call out to his father, my father. He's trying to get his compassion up, and he says, behold, we have the fire and the kindling, but where is the lamb? Yeah. May that one be drowned, his father tells him, right? In this rendering of the Medrash, see another layer of what's going on in the internal element of, now not of Avram Avinu, that was the first part, but now we have, that's over here, Avram's conscience, now we have Yitzchak's conscience. And you could say to me, well, isn't Yitzchak concerned about what Avram's concerned about? Yes. But the point is that Yitzchak, you have a responsibility to not just your father, but your mother. You should feel for her, compassion for her plight in all of this. She's not in the story yet. I know, still absent. Like, how come? What's going on with that? We're still getting there. But just this element, you see there's something here that's brewing under the surface. Abraham is saying to his son, don't listen to that. That's God will show us, hopefully, God will show us the lamb. And if he doesn't, then it will be you. And as Avram leaves open the possibility there could still be a lamb, possible. But if not, we're following the mitzvah. And the two of them go together. That's what V'yechu Shneim Yachdav means. They're on the same page. There could have been a rupture intergenerationally where Yitzchak could have said to his father, Ad Kan, I can't walk a step farther with you because it doesn't add up what's going on here. And in fact, the Medrash Tanchuma has a rendering that goes in that direction as well. The Satan came dressed up as an old man. And he said to him, a Socratic method, you could say, where are you going? Answered, Amar le lihit palel, I'm going to pray. Amar le umisha holech lihit palel, lama eishu ma'achelet biyadav eitz maktefo. You don't have to pray holding a knife and taking wood on your shoulder. Oh, maybe we'll be there for a day or two and we'll have to slaughter and we will bake and we will eat or cook and eat. Amar le. What did the Zaken, who's really the Satan, say back to Avram? In this version, Avram sees an old man in front of him and he's trying to play defense by just pushing him off. Amar le Zaken, lo sham hayitik she'amar lecha HaKadosh Baruch Hu kach et bincha. You don't think, it's said to him derisively, old man, you don't think I was also there when God said to you, take your son, your only son? V'zaken k'mot chayilech v'yovad ben shinatan lo l'meya shana lo shamata amasa masha haya biyado avdo mavakesh ma'acherim, right? V'im tomar yeli ben acher tishma min amastin v'tovad neshamish tichayev aleh bedin. Don't try to say to me you're going to have another son later because the fact is you'll be held guilty and accountable for what you do. Don't tell me you're just going to eat and that you're just going to go pray because I know full well. Now, how does the Zaken, the old man, know this? Avram either realizes it's a metaphysical creation dressed up as a man, an old man, or once again, who's the Zaken, who's the old man? It's Avram Avinu, I made this part up, looking at a pond, and looking down into the brook, about to drink. And what does he see? The reflection of part of himself, wrestling with this idea. What do you think? You think I wasn't there? You think it's right? God gave him to you when you're 100 years old, so yeah, you ever hear of such a crazy thing? He gave it to you and now he's taking it back, right? Amar le lo mastin haya ela kadosh baruch yibarach haya lo ishma mimcha. No, the one who spoke to me initially was not the Satan. Shelley, back to your point from before. I see we're over time. So I've got to finish right now. But we'll have more discussion, God willing. Next week, there may not be a shear, by the way, because I'm doing, God willing, a wedding. And I may not be back in town. So watch the announcements. I got to figure out what the time is. Maybe I'll do the shear from there. But don't come in person next week. Sorry. That's for sure not. Okay. So last line. Avram is asserting to the Satan, the voice I heard initially was not the Satan. That was God. Meaning, it could have been the Satan, but it's not. I'm telling you, it's not. So what happened? Halach me alav v'nitmeh lebachor. Now the old man left because the assertion is, don't tell me that the voice that's telling me to sacrifice my son, back to the point about human sacrifice, is the ambient culture where everybody engages in human sacrifice of their children. So I bought into I drank their Kool-Aid. No, Hashem told me to do this. And it boggles my mind too, but I'm doing the mitzvah. And the Satan now is coming to push me aside to tell me that I'm joining all of them in their level. But once the Satan left as an old man, in the Medrash Tanchuma, it's filled out more than in the Medrash Rabbah that we saw previously. Now came a young man and came to stand to the right side of Yitzchak. Old man for Avraham to relate to him, young man to Yitzchak. Again, could be Yitzchak looking into the pond, seeing his reflection. He told him, where are you going? And what did Yitzchak say? I'm not going to daven. I'm going to learn. He said, oh, are you going to learn in your life or are you going to learn after you die? Yitzchak said, have you ever heard of a person who ever learned after he died? You're dead. So he said, you are the shamed one, the son of the shamed one. How many fasts did your mother fast until you were born? Meaning, how much did she pray and hope and fast as a form of prayer? And the old man is crazy. He's senile. He's demented. He's taking you and he's mad. And you have to say something. Amar afal pichein lo evor al dat yotzriv al tzivui avi. I will not, says Yitzchak, go against the mind of my maker and the command of my father. Chazar v'amar laviv avi re'ei ma ze omer li ma omer li zeh. My father, do you see what this one is saying to me? Amar le al tashgiach alav she'enu ba'ela liya'ef lanu. Miyad v'yomer Yitzchak, etc., right? And what's the end of the story in the Medrash Tanchuma? Dad, do you see what this person standing next to me, who looks just like me, who's a young man, what he says to me, that you're crazy, that it's not really from Hashem? What is this? This is the attempt to break the Masorah in generation one, is the voice of the Satan. Says Avram Avinu, don't listen to him. He came to tire us out with his arguments. Don't take the bait. Let's keep going. Let's be single-minded. Let's keep going with it, etc. In other words, back behind all of this is the discussion twofold. Old man for Avraham, young man for Yitzchak. Avraham, in his as a paragon of Emunah, he's fending off the Satan, and I won't listen to the voice of the Satan. I know the difference between the voice of the Satan, which is the voice of the rest of the culture, etc., about human sacrifice. That's not who spoke to me. Hashem told me to do this, and you're the Satan trying to push me aside from it. Then the attack on Yitzchak is, don't listen to the previous generation. Listen to nothing that your parents tell you, especially not if your father says to something that seems to be against the value system that you have, etc., right? Challenge, don't listen, etc. He's going to try to kill you. And what about your mother, etc.? Avram says, don't listen to that voice trying to split us apart. Now, there's another layer here that we're not going to have time for today, but God willing, next we will open with this layer, and it has to do with the third way that the Satan came, which will get us back to the idea of the 3 days, what took so long, etc., and of Avraham's prayers and his tefillot on the journey, but we don't have time for that today, so we got to say goodbye now. Again, next week, we are not likely to have a shiur. Actually, let me say it that way, not likely to have a shiur, because we're going to be away. I'm going to be away, not available because of a wedding. Thank God. So for Simchas. Okay. Thank you for learning today. I wish everyone all the best. Let's go to the next year. Please feel free.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for your class.
Thank you,